Welcome to this video showcasing an eTapestry Classy integration with Zapier. This video will be a case study on an organization that is actually using this integration to automate their day-to-day workflow with eTapestry. I appreciate your interest in this topic and thank you for watching. My name is Jessie and I'm an eTapestry consultant at Sidekick Solutions. Sidekick Solutions is a Blackbaud consulting and integration partner that specializes in eTapestry software, specifically integrations. We help new and existing users integrate eTapestry with the way they work. Today, we are going to explore an exciting integration for eTapestry and Classy. What's exciting about this video is that we're going to walk through a real-life solution that is deployed at an organization called Freedom Service Dogs. In partnership with Freedom Service Dogs, we configured and deployed an integration system that automates the entry of Classy supporters and transactions in eTapestry. In this video, we're going to cover the data management challenges Freedom Service Dogs face with Classy and eTapestry as separate platforms, the automated solution we configured to address those challenges, and wrap up the video by talking about the outcomes Freedom Service Dogs experienced with this integration. So we often get asked why this topic and why this video. Well, we want to be able to showcase how integrations work in real settings for real organizations day to day. To demonstrate how an integration can be designed and customized to a unique workflow, we want to share Freedom Service Dog solution. It's a great example of data entry automation and custom mapping deployed in a short time frame to accommodate the launch of a new campaign in Classy. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Freedom Service Dogs is a nonprofit focused on unleashing the potential of dogs by transforming them into custom-trained, life-changing assistance dogs for people in need. The clients they serve live with disabilities like autism, traumatic brain injury, multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, spinal cord injuries, and more. And they also serve veterans with post-traumatic stress. Freedom Service Dogs has been recognized nationally for its innovative approach and life-changing work. And we've been lucky enough to work with Freedom Service Dogs for a few years now, and their commitment to maximizing their best-in-class tools and building capacity for their team is more than noteworthy. So let's talk about how we got here. So prior to developing a Classy to eTapestry integration, Freedom Service Dogs was only leveraging the Classy platform for special occasion and seasonal e-cards. They were manually entering Classy transactions into eTapestry on a periodic basis and occasionally using imports if the volume was of a certain amount that they found it was more time or more cost or time effective to do an import rather than manually entering the data in eTapestry. Now, they had a desire to begin expanding the use of their Classy platform and utilizing the other functionality that was available. For example, they wanted to begin using campaign pages in Classy instead of eTapestry DIY forms. So our priority with this solution was to develop a real-time data integration from Classy into eTapestry that would create constituents and GIFs. So with a need for an automated integration that could support high volume, custom data mapping and coding, and a real-time sync, we turned to Zapier as an integration platform. So you might be asking, why Zapier? So our team at Sidekick Solutions has developed an eTapestry module that we call the eTapestry API Wrapper, or Wrapper for short. And the wrapper is an adapter for eTapestry that we've connected to Zapier. And we've also developed a custom app in Zapier that makes it easier for us to connect Classy with an organization's eTapestry database. So we connected the eTapestry API wrapper in our Classy app to Zapier because Zapier is already connected to over 1,500 other applications, meaning it's a true one-to-many solution. By connecting eTapestry to Zapier, you get integrations for multiple applications in a single platform. This also provides you with the visibility to see how your integrations are running. With the transparency to see successful tasks and errors without needing to know a line of code, you don't need a developer to monitor and manage an integration, which is one of our goals at Sidekick Solutions. We like to develop integrations that our clients can manage themselves. And then Zapier also allows us to build integrations with custom mapping for any use case, so organizations aren't stuck with a cookie cutter integration that doesn't match their workflow. So an eTapestry connection to Zapier makes it one of the most integration-ready solutions for small, mid-sized, and growing nonprofits. Going into this project, Freedom Service Dogs was familiar with Zapier, as they were already using Zapier and the eTapestry API wrapper for custom integrations with Constant Contact and Gravity Forms. Now, because they already had this existing understanding of Zapier and we're already using Zapier in the eTapestry API, this means we could integrate eTapestry and Classy on the same single platform as their other integrations. Additionally, Zapier allowed us to build a solution they could manage without lines of code, overly complex logic, or API functionality. Now, even with Zapier, we aren't always able to configure a solution for every aspect of a client's workflow. As we showcase Freedom Service Dog's integration of Classy and eTapestry, you'll notice a few items that require periodic maintenance and monitoring. For this integration, most of these are items that could not be captured in the technical configuration, but for a lot of integrations, it also is items that, in collaboration with the client, were excluded. Now, before we dive into the solution, we want to make sure to note that no integration is ever final. As an organization's needs change or new elements are added, a solution developed in Zapier with the eTapestry API wrapper and the Classy app can be modified to include additional customization or expanded to include other applications. Like any piece of software, there's always going to be refinement and maintenance over time. With that in mind, let's take a look at the eTapestry Zapier solution for Freedom Service Dogs. So when we start an integration project with a client, we always like to look at what are our challenges? What are the ultimate goals that the client has, and what do we need to solve for in our solution? So one of the questions that came to us during the discovery process was, how do we integrate Classy with eTapestry in a way that Freedom Service Dogs can manage once the integration is live? So prior to this project with Freedom Service Dogs, there was not an app available in Zapier for the Classy platform. In order to access Classy information, it often required a developer to set up a custom integration, tapping into the Classy API directly. So at Sidekick Solutions, to solve Freedom Service Dogs' problem, we actually developed a custom Zapier app that allows clients to connect Classy to other platforms like eTapestry very easily. Now, the other challenge we faced was, how do we create a solution that will scale to accommodate new campaign launches in Classy? So with this, we actually use field mapping in Zapier and custom fields in eTapestry to allow us to accommodate and scale based off of the organization's use of Classy. And this is one of the pieces where we anticipate over time we'll need to refine and enhance Freedom Service Dogs integration to meet their needs as they begin to utilize the functionality in Classy further. So for each transaction in Classy, what we're doing is that for each successful transaction in Classy, so a transaction that actually falls into that successful status, the integration workflow first looks up the corresponding eTapestry approach based off of the Classy campaign. So this is a custom mapping step implemented for Freedom Service Dogs. We then convert the date to the time zone for the organization, as the date and time that come across from Classy are in what's called UTC, so a standard time. So we convert that to the client's own time zone. And then the real steps in this integration are that for each new transaction in Classy, we're finding or creating a constituent in eTapestry using the supporter information from Classy. And then we're creating a gift in eTapestry using the transaction details from Classy as well. So let's go ahead and walk through each one of those steps. So the trigger, which is the action or the activity in Classy that's going to kick off our workflow, is actually a new transaction in Classy. So this trigger is set up so that when that transaction comes through, it's going to kick off our workflow. So you can think of it almost like operating almost like a notification, where when that new transaction is processed in Classy, it's going to ping our workflow and essentially kick off the subsequent steps. So the next step in our workflow is that we are actually filtering on the status of that transaction. So we only want to process transactions and push transactions to eTapestry that are successful. We don't want canceled transactions to go to eTapestry. We only want the successful ones. So Zapier provides a whole slew of standard tools that make it very easy to build integrations, and one of them is this filter tool that allows us to use that conditional logic to identify what type of records we want to allow to continue passing through our workflow. Now this step here, which we call our lookup table step, this is a step that's really important because this is allowing us to customize this integration for Freedom Service Dog's needs. So Freedom Service Dogs wanted to convert the campaign in Classy to the approach field in eTapestry. So you can see that we're using a lookup table where the lookup key right here, this is the campaign name in Classy. And then our lookup table below has the Classy campaigns listed on the left and the corresponding eTapestry approach on the right. So using this lookup table step, we're able to take any campaign from Classy and assign the appropriate approach in eTapestry. So we're getting that custom coding based off of the transaction details from Classy instead of every transaction from Classy needing to be formatted the exact same way and have the same fun campaign and approach coding. Now, after we've done this step to look up the appropriate eTapestry approach, this is essentially just pulling this data into our workflow so we can use it in a later step. But after this is, again, a great formatter tool available in Zapier, one of their pre-built tools that we're able to use, because the date and time that's coming through from Classy for the date that transaction occurred is actually in what's called UTC. So that's kind of like standard time. It's very common when we're talking about configurations and integrations to use UTC as the time zone. However, Freedom Service Dogs, they're located in Denver, Colorado, and so they fall under, the mountain time zone in the United States. And so we need to convert that UTC time to the month, day, and year in the corresponding time zone so that the date will write appropriately when we create that gift in eTapestry. So this is a really important step to make sure that the date of the transaction in Classy is matching with the date of the journal entry in eTapestry. So now we get to our eTapestry action steps. And the first one is to find or create a constituent. So using the supporter information from Classy, we are going to do a 2-field duplicate search using name, address, phone, and email address. So it's essentially going to use these fields to try and find an existing account in eTapestry. Now, if an existing account is not found, the integration is going to go ahead and create a new account. Now, an important thing to note is that if it does find an existing account in eTapestry, it does not update any constituent information on that found record. So this operates more as a search feature. It's going to find that existing account, but not an update feature. So it's not going to update any details on that existing account in eTapestry. And then our second eTapestry step is to create a gift. So on the create a gift, this is where those previous formatting steps that we performed are going to pull that data in. So we have standard field mapping for fields like the date, the amount, fund and campaign. We actually hard coded in the integration, meaning that it's the same fund and campaign for every transaction. So you can see that that's just selected from a drop-down menu. But then we use that lookup table for the eTapestry approach, where down here you can see we pull in, this little icon right here is indicating that lookup table step. But we pulled in the value resulting from that lookup table into the approach field so that based off of the Classy campaign for that transaction, it's going to assign the appropriate approach in eTapestry. Now the date here as well, this is actually pulled in from that conversion that we just did in the prior step. To go ahead and convert that date to US Mountain Time for Freedom Service Dogs as they're located in Denver, Colorado. And what's not shown in this screenshot is that we are actually able to map to custom fields as well. So Freedom Service Dogs has a custom field for acknowledged, where they flag transactions with a value of yes in the acknowledged field if they've been acknowledged. So transactions through Classy receive an automatic email acknowledgement following the donation. And so Freedom Service Dogs wanted all of these transactions, all of these gifts, when they're created in eTapestry, to go ahead and be coded as yes in that acknowledged field. So we are able to accomplish that. We're able to update that user-defined field when we're creating that gift to make sure that these individuals are not acknowledged multiple times as they get that initial acknowledgement from Classy, and Freedom Service Dogs doesn't want to send an additional acknowledgement beyond that. Now, We also are pulling in the transaction ID number from Classy and writing that into the note field in the gift itself in eTapestry. And so often we see organizations either write this data into the note field, as Freedom Service Dogs is doing, or it can be written into a user-defined field. But we always recommend including the transaction ID number from Classy, as it creates a linking reference between the two systems. So if you need to look up a gift in eTapestry based off of the Classy transaction ID, or you see a gift in eTapestry and you want to look up the details in Classy, that transaction ID number is going to be that really easy linking reference to help you connect those two systems. And then the other piece that we did is there is a user-defined field category. It's actually a system-defined field. I'm going to correct myself there. A system-defined field in eTapestry that's called data source. And this lets you identify where this record originated from. So we created a custom value for Classy in eTapestry. And so each new constituent created and each gift created in eTapestry as a result of this integration gets flagged with a data source of Classy, so that Freedom Service Dogs can pull really easy reports to see what constituent accounts were created from the integration, and to pull a list really easily of all transactions created through the Classy integration. So now that we've talked about the solution itself, let's talk about some of the integration outcomes. And so when we're talking about integration outcomes, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the maintenance that's associated with an integration. So for Freedom Service Dogs integration, there are a couple of maintenance items that they're going to be performing to make sure their integration continues running smoothly and to minimize the number of errors that they could potentially experience in Zapier. So the primary maintenance step that they're going to take is they're going to maintain that lookup table that has all of their Classy campaigns and the corresponding eTapestry approach that they would want to assign for a transaction associated with that Classy campaign. So for each new Classy campaign, they need to add that to the lookup table and assign the corresponding eTapestry approach. And if an existing Classy campaign or eTapestry approach is renamed or modified in any way, they need to go into that lookup table and update that information as well. Freedom Service Dogs actually already has a great procedure for data quality in place. And part of this is a monthly review of potential duplicates. And so they have a scheduled report in eTapestry that serves as a prompt to review a duplicate review of all accounts that were created in the prior month. So for any new accounts created through this Classy integration, it's going to pull into their standard monthly duplicate review and allow them to check to see if perhaps it really is a new account that should have been created, or perhaps they already have an existing account for that constituent, but based off of the details entered through Classy, it didn't match that existing account. And so allows them then to perform that duplicate merge and merge those accounts together. And then the last piece of maintenance that Freedom Service Dogs will be performing is that for any integration developed on Zapier, it's always important to monitor tasks in Zapier during high volume. So the volume of data requires monitoring, especially when new campaigns are launched, as the organization will likely see an influx in transaction volume during that time. And then also reviewing Zapier to review and resolve errors. So the most common error that we anticipate here for Freedom Service Dogs is if that lookup table is not kept up to date. For example, if a Classy campaign is created in Classy, but not added to that lookup table, it will trigger an error when the first transaction comes through, letting Freedom Service Dogs know that that campaign needs to be added to that lookup table in Zapier. Now, all integrations require maintenance and continuous improvement, and we expect that this integration system will require tightening over time. The integration outlined today addresses the use case, and we already did some tightening during testing. So for example, that conversion from UTC to Mountain Time, that was added during our testing. The filter to only allow successful transactions to process through, that was tightened up during testing. So this integration, as I've mentioned a few times, is always in process. It's always a work in process. And as the integration landscape changes and more functionality becomes available, we're able to enhance these integrations to encompass different aspects of the workflow that maybe could not have been included before. So long term, there may be adjustments to the custom mapping, improved data quality measures, or even adjustments to the workflow to reduce manual steps required by staff in the integration design. So when it comes to the integration for Freedom Service dogs, there was a few outcomes that they experienced. So number one is right after we launched their integration, they launched their first campaign page in Classy. So as I mentioned earlier in this video, they had previously only been using Classy for special occasion and seasonal e-cards. But when we launched their integration on April 1st, they decided to deploy a new campaign page in Classy and launch that on April 2nd. And so whereas they had been averaging, 5 to 10 transactions from Classy per week, on the first day of the campaign, it resulted in 110 transactions alone. And in the first week of their campaign, 275 transactions were processed through the Classy to eTapestry integration. So if we estimate that each transaction takes roughly 2 to 3 minutes to enter in eTapestry, this means that it saved them over 10 hours of manual entry in a week alone based off of the launch of that new campaign. Now, not only did this save them time with the large volume of transactions they were seeing, but it also resulted in consistent coding in eTapestry, allowing for easier reporting on campaign performance and the ability to match up campaign performance between Classy and eTapestry. Now, this is one of those pieces that I'd mentioned on the maintenance slide in terms of monitoring volume in Zapier, because as soon as we launched the eTapestry or the Classy eTapestry integration for Freedom Service dogs, and they saw this large influx of donations due to this new campaign, they actually needed to upgrade their Zapier subscription. So as I mentioned, they already have existing integrations for Gravity Forms and Constant Contact, and the subscription level they had was sufficient for those two integrations. But adding this new Classy integration and the volume that is associated with it required them to increase their Zapier subscription, and as they launch new campaigns in eTapestry, may require additional upgrades to their Zapier subscription based off of those new campaigns and the volume that they're seeing with those as well. But don't just take our word for the outcomes of this integration. Aaron Conley, the Director of Communications at Freedom Service Dogs, shared the following testimonial. The integration process was simple, fast, and required very little from our team. Sidekick Solutions took care of everything, which is especially valuable for a small nonprofit like Freedom Service Dogs. The integration will save our fundraising team time, which is a huge win. Previously, our process was to constantly import, whether through manual entry or mass imports, from Classy into eTapestry. This time savings will be particularly helpful when we run fundraising campaigns that result in receiving many donations in a short amount of time. In the future, because of this integration, we will probably be utilizing Classy more to host our campaigns and donation pages because they look more professional and provide a better user experience than the DIY forms in eTapestry we were using previously. It is also a nice benefit that we can track donations and donors as they come in and see up-to-date campaign totals, as opposed to eTapestry where we have to pull reports each time we want to have a campaign update. The only negative aspect we have come across at this early stage of the integration is that if we already have a donor in our database, the automated integration does not allow us to update those existing accounts with new or different contact information. This piece will require manual data entry. Overall, we are very pleased with this new integration and grateful to Sidekick Solutions for helping us through implementation, which will greatly improve our process. I want to thank Erin and her team's collaboration at Freedom Service Dogs on this integration. The volume of data transferred via the integration in the first week alone is substantial and has been a great opportunity to improve our eTapestry and Classy Zapier apps to accommodate higher demand. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this presentation and our approach to eTapestry software, let's find some time to connect. We'd love to learn more about your organization, your challenges, and the applications you use to support your daily processes. Send us an email to info@sidekicksolutionsllc.com. Our door is always open. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.